All right, so we're starting with Irvin on honeypot or not.
This is a fun little tool. You can run it, you put an IP address and find out if it's a honeypot or if it's a real system. Great for open source intelligence, great for early recon.
Yeah, let's see what it thinks of one of my servers. No information available. Please try another address. Okay, well, that's what you get.
Yeah,
I didn't put in an IP. I put in a domain name. Anyway.
it looks like it wants IP addresses.
Yep.
But anyway, I think this is a great little tool that Shodan put out.
Yeah, it sounds like fun. Be kind of fun to set up a few honeypots and see how accurate it is.
Yep.
All right, and Kaitlyn, DNS hijacking in Brazil.
Yeah, so Brazil apparently has a bunch of home routers that are vulnerable to CSRF attacks. So here's the plan. This is what criminals are doing. They are creating web pages with links to your local router. You click on the links, and it sends a request to the router to change the DNS server that you get assigned to. That malicious DNS server then changes the address to your banking website, like bankofamerica.com goes to the attacker's website now. And then they sort of proxy Bank of America's website, and then of course they get into your account and steal all your money. So that's what's going on in Brazil right now.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like DNS Changer. We had a few years back.
Yeah.
So are they patching the routers or what?
As far as I know, they're not patching it. They should. There's nothing in the article about patching it, but apparently there's just a bunch of default passwords and stuff that they're using, and JavaScript can essentially go through all the default passwords and usernames and get in there. And
same old thing. This customer premises equipment usually doesn't get updated. All right, Alan, you've got Eric Prince.
Yes, Eric Prince, heir to the multi-billion-dollar Prince Auto Parts fortune, brother to former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, and founder of disgraced military contracting company Blackwater, is back in the news. Apparently, there was a confidential UN report that was issued to the UN Security Council that the New York Times has gotten its hands on. And in this report, it details how Eric Prince has violated the arms embargo on Libya to the tune of $80 million. He's been supplying the warlord who is in control of the eastern half of Libya with aircraft, mercenaries, and interestingly, cybersecurity specialists. There are only a couple of mentions of this in the article, but this is what really caught my attention, is that apparently Eric Prince has sent cybersecurity specialists on the ground to Libya, and they are currently there, at least at the time of the issue of this report. So they are on the ground, they're not working remotely, but they're inside of Libya working on behalf of this rebel army. And I don't know if they're more conventional signals intelligence or electronic warfare specialists, and they're just being labeled as cybersecurity specialists. But if it's true that they're cybersecurity specialists, I have to wonder what exactly they're doing there and what requires them to be in the country in the first place. And if also, this would be, as far as I know, the very first time that you have cybersecurity specialists who are actively engaged in a civil war in this type of role. So hopefully we'll get more information on this. But if everything is as it appears, then this might open up a kind of a new era in cybersecurity operations in warfare.
And what's the punishment for violating these sanctions?
Well, he could be punished by the U.S. government, but we'll see if that happens. He's gotten away from punishment in the past. He's been involved in all kinds of dirty dealings. Every single war in the world seems to have he's in it one way or another. Like, he was involved in Sudan. He's been involved in every conflict in the Middle East. He's been involved, even though he claimed to have gotten out of it. He's been involved in all kinds of arms deals for years now. And of course, he was also involved in meeting with a Russian banker shortly after Trump was elected, and he was never called to account for that. So, he just gets away with it.
Until you mentioned the cybersecurity part, I was thinking, I've seen this movie before.
Yeah. Nothing new, really.
And I think when people are this close to military conflicts and working internationally, there really are almost no laws that ever seem to touch them.
Yeah. It seems like the closer you are to the power, the global power, the less accountable you are, even if you are running guns and supplying mercenaries and doing all kinds of questionable things.
But
apparently,
I think your reputation probably matters. Yeah.
Well, I don't think he cares at this point, and he doesn't need to care. Even if his mercenary business fails, he can still inherit billions of dollars from his family's fortune. So,
but in my experience, rich people never think they have enough. The more they're rich, the more they just want more. But anyway.
I think his mercenary business is actually doing quite well financially.
It seems to be working out okay for him.
Well, and I'm curious too about those the cybersecurity experts. Are those essentially mercenaries as well? It's my first thought.
They might do a DEF CON talk remotely and never set foot in the U.S.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, well, anyway, we'll see where that goes. And so I thought this was pretty amazing. The 77 just fell apart while the people were on it. They took pictures out the window of the engine catching on fire and burning. And then it started dumping big hunks of the engine down on people's football fields and houses and stuff in Denver. So that got a lot of attention. And then Boeing has now suspended the 777s entirely. Boeing's having a bad couple of years with the 737 MAX and now the 777. They seem to have some kind of serious quality control issues.
They started to remind me of Intel.
Well, I don't think Intel had to suspend the product line.
No, but they did have some pretty big breaches.
Yeah.
They're kind of they're like the Bowne of the airlines, or not the airlines, but the airplane manufacturers.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I hope you sold your Boeing stock anyway.
Yeah, so when I first saw that, people were saying, what would you do if you looked outside your plane and you saw this engine on fire? And I
record a video and put it on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Record it, put it on YouTube. I wouldn't be that concerned, to be honest. Airplanes don't fall out of the sky if an engine goes bad, if an engine falls off, if an engine fails, it's fine. If you have one engine, you're good to go. These things are highly redundant. If both engines fail, then I'm a little worried. But as long as you have one engine and you can get to an airport, you're fine.
Well, as long as the halon works and the fire doesn't spread.
Yeah, I mean, it's very unlikely that the fire would spread. So the way one of these big airliners work is that and smaller planes too, is that the fuel is actually stored in the wings itself. So what would have to happen is that the fire would have to spread from the engine through the wings, which wouldn't get any oxygen. You can't light it on fire if there's no oxygen in the wings. And then, that would, I don't know, it wouldn't worry me too much about it if one of the engines failed like that. But it's more scary about what's on the ground, because those parts were big and they landed in people's yards and stuff. That's scary.
Well, I had a bad landing in Dallas one time where it was really rough and all the ceiling things popped open and dumped luggage on people and people were throwing up and screaming and stuff. And when I told one of my students about that, he was a pilot. And he said, "Oh, I wouldn't worry about that. It doesn't matter. Until you're completely upside down, everything's fine."
Yeah, that's exactly true. These planes just, in a lot of ways, they're kind of like magic. Okay, I know that's kind of a trope, like how do planes fly fast? Well, the truth is that, and this is the dirty secrets in aerodynamics, so we're still not entirely sure how planes fly. I mean, in school we learned about the Bernoulli effect. Yeah, that only accounts for a very small amount of lift overall. as far as we know, it just kind of the wings hit the air and it kind of produces lift somehow. We can model it and it works, but you know, it flies and you don't need engines. You know, the plane, you can turn off the engines, the plane will glide. I mean, it's all good.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It seems kind of insane to me that we haven't thoroughly understood the physics of airplanes yet. That's sort of nuts. But I think it was Einstein that said, you know, when I die, I hope to speak to God, and he may have answers to some things, but on turbulent fluid flow, I don't think even God can help us.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's just fluid dynamics and, you know, pretty much
It's
chaos
turbulent
theory
fluid
takes-
dynamics, which is the worst.
Yes.
Laminar flow you can do, but turbulence is pretty much black magic.
Yeah, it's pretty much chaos theory in physical form.
It is. Anyway, Google is firing people again.
Yeah, not having learned from the first time when they fired Timnit Gebru, they fired the manager of that team because why not? May as well just keep digging that hole deeper. You know, and the whole thing is insane because to start with, she the first person who got fired, Dr. Gebru, she was doing what they hired her to do. These people were part of Google's ethics and AI team. She published this paper saying like, oh, hey, there are some major issues here. Irresponsible use of AI is causing, you know, detrimental effects to humans and the environment. And they told her to take her name off the paper at first, and she refused to do that. Then she ended up getting fired. Well, her manager of this team, that again, the team is ethics, like ethics and AI, essentially. They wanted to promote this. They were doing what they were hired to do. Her manager said this is bullshit and started documenting evidence of why it was bullshit. And then they fired her too. Now, I don't understand why they couldn't have said, hey, at the beginning, before they fired the first one, hey, oh yeah, well, we see that there are some issues here. We're going to take steps to address it and we want to do better. No.
There's some kind of poetry in the fact that your worst ethical lapses happen on the ethics team.
There really is. There really is.
Well, yep. All right. And then we got Apple. What's going on with the Apple security?
So this apparently has been coming out for a number of years. This is the latest update, the Apple Platform Security. It is an interesting read. I started reading it while I got my oil changed this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about how the system works, down to things like system security, how the system boots. Like if you have a problem and you want to get into safe boot, how do you do it on a Mac? Like the M1s, for example, how they have set up encryption and whatnot. I think it's a great read.
I know the Apple encryption is multi-layered and very interesting. I learned some of it from, you know, the guy that developed the new jailbreak.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really complicated. There's several different layers of encryption and different encryption states and different verifications during boot up. It's very advanced.
Yeah. I was reading the boot process for the Apple Silicon, and it is definitely a number of steps and a lot of redundant checks to make sure, yes, this is the OS we're booting. This is a verified OS. Like there's a lot of checks before the thing actually runs.
And they have the hardware security module, the secure element. And as far as I know, that has proven quite strong. I know some of the other simulated ones have been broken into, but that separate chip to hold cryptographic secrets seems to work very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a great read.
That's why I've told my friends, if you get Apple Pay, it's more secure than using a real credit card.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think anybody who wants to be well-rounded in all hardware should read this.
And I think Apple's kind of sets the standard. Yeah. So Brave leaking onion addresses, that's pretty rude, you know. The whole
that is so rude. Yeah, I don't know why they're doing this. So Brave actually fixed this issue in their latest patch. But previously, up until this point, if you were using Brave browser, which is supposed to be a secure browser that has a private mode that uses Tor, the Tor network to browse the internet,
Yeah.
If you go to Onion site, it sends those addresses unencrypted to your standard operating system DNS servers that you use.
They don't even use DNS.
They
DNS.
don't even use DNSSEC or HTTPS over DNS or anything
Yeah.
like that. They just send it out for everyone to read that you went to, hireamurderer.onion or something. It's
That's
like
right.
so rude.
Yeah, it's like being unethical with the ethics committee, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Anyway, so the Brave browser did fix it. So if you're using Brave, update to the latest version, you will be fine. But previously, yes, if you were using this to do something you didn't want people to know, well, it's probably in some DNS log permanently from now on. Have fun, people.
Yep. And so Alan's got this hacker leaking files from Jones Day.
Yeah, Jones Day, one of the largest law firms in the world with 2,500 lawyers and over $2 billion in annual revenue, has gotten hacked by the Klopp ransomware gang. And I don't know what happened to their ransomware, because apparently they say, the Klopp ransomware gang says that they did not encrypt Jones Day's assets. So don't know what happened there. Maybe they had, Jones Day had really good backups. But at any rate, they did try to embarrass Jones Day into paying out a ransom, which apparently Jones Day refused to do. And so now Klopp is leaking many, many gigabytes of files onto the dark web, and they are accessible to anyone who wants to download them. So this could just be another embarrassing leak, except for the fact that Jones Day happens to be representing Donald J. Trump currently. And so it will be very interesting to see what records pertaining to that famous client and many other very famous clients are getting released. And I know that at least some emails are included in this dump.
And there it is. That's why this is of interest.
But if
Yes.
Like, okay, another breach. You know, it's almost
Right.
like something to shrug. But then, oh, that's their client. Okay.
Yes. The breach in and of itself is nothing spectacular. I mean, it's a big deal, but for what it is. But no, it's who their client is, and well, there are many clients are that makes it interesting.
But but Trump can't get a good lawyer for anything. I mean, Trump has to hire lawyers off like an ad on a bus stop bench. I mean, look at the guys in the impeachment. These guys must be the bottom of the barrel lawyers, because they're not going to get paid, and everybody knows that.
Well, they're like the 14th largest law firm globally. So,
and they work for Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, at least as of recently. Maybe they've dumped him again, but yeah.
Didn't one of the 3 lawyers who defended him lose their whatchamahoots, their license?
I don't know.
Yeah, the fellow in Georgia, the Georgia State Bar is considering his license, but no, I don't think that they've gone through with that just yet.
But they're considering. I mean, their performance, they should. I mean, they're obviously complete idiots.
So
Yeah.
let's back up. So I come from a family of lawyers, and one of the things that I learned after getting into cybersecurity and being in a family of lawyers is that anytime there's a high profile case at the law firm, and this is not a big law firm that my parents work at, but anytime there's any sort of high profile or important case, they get attacked. Like, there's a lot of interest in having hackers attack law firms, which makes me think that these are not just random attacks, but highly motivated. And I don't think it's all hacktivists either. I think there's a lot of money that going on in the background between law firms and stuff, trying to just get data and do things shady. It's ridiculous.
Also,
these guys said it was financial. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, though, there's also, coming from a family of lawyers myself, which is pretty funny. There's also, I've seen, especially in high stakes stuff, there are some underhanded practices in the industry too, where, you know, there are some unethical attorneys who will try to throw their opponents under the bus at any opportunity, and sabotage happens.
Yeah, no, I remember growing up, coming once again from a family of lawyers and hearing all these stories of lawyers trying to throw each other under the bus and just creating this hostile workspace. I was terrified of entering the workforce. Like, it's so ridiculous. This field is just so cutthroat at times.
You know, I didn't realize this. You know, I used to be effectively a paralegal working at this escrow agency, running the database. We all have connections to this, although I didn't do the law side so much. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends like how high up you are, you know, in the lawyer ladder. If you're just a paralegal, you're probably not exposed to that much of the drama. But of course, if you're a partner in a large law firm, hello, you know.
Yeah, and it depends on what kind of law you're practicing. You know, more. I think there's more room for treachery in, especially in corporate law, but even in family law sometimes and stuff like that. That's, you would think would be relatively low financial stakes. But I would think that there would be less of that at the escrow, in property and escrow. But
Yeah. Ours was always after the lawsuit was over. We were just handling the money. Anyway, good. And then so I was talking about the COVID long haulers. 2 studies from different nations have come out saying it's a lot of people. Like a third of the people that get sick or half the people that get sick 6 months later still have awful problems like headaches, constant pain, loss of change of appetite, change in their sense of smell. So stuff they used to like is now intolerable to them, and weird things like that. And of course, just like it reminds me of the chronic fatigue stuff, they're having trouble convincing doctors it's real. That's why these studies are so important. And nobody really understands what's going on. But you know, you really don't want to get this thing. That's why I'm arguing with all my friends who don't want to get the vaccine, saying, stop talking nonsense and get the vaccine. You really don't want to get this.
Yeah, I was so hopeful because I read an article the other day that said that California could be on track to vaccinating all our citizens by September 21st. Now, of course, that's not going to happen because September 21st, yes.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, getting everyone in California vaccinated within a year is, I think, an incredible task. But we could do it potentially. But of course, there's going to be that contingent of people that thinks that the vaccine contains Generation 5 cellular hardware and stuff. And there's...
Well, who cares if it does?
Yes,
that would be fine.
I know, seriously. So one of the arguments about vaccines, against vaccines, is that, of course, and this is not true, okay? Just people out there, this is not true, is that it causes autism. And you know what? Even if it did cause autism at the rates that they quote unquote say it does, and it doesn't, I have to repeat that as many times as I can, it's still better than your child being dead.
Well, yeah, that's 1 in a million. I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, I know I have so many friends that wouldn't get flu shots and they won't get the vaccine. It's really, in my experience, it's like 30 to 50% of the people around here are just really reluctant to get a normal vaccination.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we said before on the podcast, some of that is justified in the case of when Liz pointed out that one of the groups that they wanted to target for the vaccine first were people in high risk groups, including, minority groups. And of course, there's been a history of medical experimentation, on people of color. So of course there was some hesitancy about that, but there's been a lot of good work trying to convince people that, yeah, you do need to get vaccinated. And
I think we need like public service commercials and stuff, because around here it just seems to be, in my people I know, it's mostly just hippies that say everything should be organic. You don't want to put that nasty synthetic stuff in your body. And I'm like, shut up and put it in.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. I mean, there's this idea that, organic is better, right? Of
Yeah.
course, that's just the naturalistic
Well, what
fallacy.
could be more natural than getting some awful disease and dying? Why, that's
Yeah.
nature's way right there.
Right. Yeah. Eat dirt and learn to think, just the naturalistic fallacy.
And then get killed by a wild animal. If you want nature, you can have it. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. No, but GMOs I think are absolutely great. I mean, the idea behind a GMO, for people that don't know, is that so GMOs are nothing new. We've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. Basically, the old way of doing it is you would find two plants that produce the kind of fruit or produce you like, mate them together, and then create new offspring and do that. We can speed up the process now by, getting genetics involved. And all of a sudden it's like, no, we can't have that, except that we can make GMOs that require less pesticides and stuff. So you're eating less poison and somehow that's bad. I don't get it. But
well, yeah, there's a lot of science fiction about it, but this is how we ended up with dogs. I mean, we
Yes.
did it with genetic modification. The slow.
yeah, we didn't even know what we were doing. It was like flying airplanes back,
No, I think they knew exactly what they were doing. They were picking the ones they liked and breeding the ones that were better.
Right, but they didn't know how it was working. They knew that they could do it. They just didn't know how it was working.
They knew it as well as we know how airplanes work. And
That's what I'm saying. It was exactly like we were taking earlier about, we know how to make airplanes, we know how to make them work, we don't know why they work.
Yeah.
It's the same thing back then with breeding.
Part of the problem is the implementation, though. I mean, yes, it's kind of disingenuous to say like all GMO is bad. However, the way that it's been implemented, especially in our country, isn't the greatest. Rather than using it to breed, say, corn or soybeans that require less pesticide, instead it has been used to create corn and soybeans that are Roundup ready so that you can use more pesticide, because the company that sells the genetically modified corn and soy is also selling you the pesticide. So they want you to buy more of it. And it's one of those things where it's like we're having, I feel like culturally that we're oftentimes having the wrong argument, like all GMO is bad and it's totally different than selective breeding, which it's really not. Instead of, hey, how are we implementing this new technology? Like with, it's similar to other things like AI. It can be a very helpful and useful technology. However, it's not so great when you're using it to power your ethnic cleansing campaign.
So what we need is an ethics committee.
Right. Well, I was gonna say that the main issue that I have with GMOs currently is the corporatization and the patents that go along with it and copyrights. And so now we have seeds that are like patented and copyrighted,
Right.
which is absolutely ridiculous. And we do need to sort of democratize our food production. I absolutely agree. There's problems in the economic system of GMOs, but I'm just, there's nothing inherently wrong, I don't believe, with GMOs in and of themselves.
Nothing a little socialism couldn't cure.
Well, I don't, we'll have to see what we can do.
Yeah. Anyway, so Liz, you've got the Russians hacking us again.
Well, they've been hacking us all along, but for some reason now we've decided to get a little more serious about it. And essentially, finally we're saying as a government, hey, and this is both sides of the aisle. This isn't just Democrats or Republicans saying this, like maybe we should get a little bit more serious about this and expand CISA and really get proactive about things, because one of the standouts in this article that I didn't even hear about this at all when it happened, but the Social Security Administration was essentially backdoored, and I was sort of laughing out loud when I read this, because their spokesperson said there were no indicators suggesting we were targeted or that a future attack occurred, beyond when they initially put the backdoor in. And it's like, that's a problem, especially because, there's not, you may have not caught all the indicators. And, this is coming down to, again, it's probably pretty bad that we're using Social Security as our primary identification in this country, which it was never intended to be. I might add, Social Security numbers were never intended to be used for identification, but now we use it for everything. Now it's the pinnacle of you know, are you an American, and how can we look you up in the system? So I think it's a pro in that you know, we're moving away from the just pretend this problem will go away and it's not an issue, and getting a little more proactive about it. However, it's going to be interesting to see how this is carried out. And again, just to slip this in here, especially now that we're realizing that we're getting hacked left, right, and center in the public and private sectors, and lots more companies and the government are going to be hiring a lot more people to work in cybersecurity. Maybe now is not the best time to defund vocational education that's teaching workers how to transition into security careers. Just going to put that out there.
Yeah, another wild idea. But I mean, I think we're going to be spending years cleaning this up. This the SolarWinds Act. It's basically
it's a growth, which is why it's a growth market.
Yeah. No, I think everybody knows that. And like I say, I'm hoping we can convince the college to keep you on, because we're going to lose our NSA certification if we don't continue to do the cyber competition. So we'll see if that impresses anybody. But I saw in Guardian that it's not only cutting City College to the bone, they're also firing San Francisco police officers now to save money. And they closed the police academy. So as I expected, I think San Francisco's budget problems are enormous.
I read something though last week saying they had like it was something around like $128 million surplus for the city of San Francisco. So I don't really understand how it's possible, or what they're gonna do with that.
That's hard to believe they could have that and have somebody not just embezzle it. I mean,
that's what I thought. That's what I thought. And I mean,
trust these people to be corrupt.
And you just never know. You just never know, like what the reporting is. Oh, sorry, $125 million surplus. They reported this like a week or two ago, and then it said 3 months ago that they had $116 million deficit. So I'm not really sure how there was like $250 million shift in 3 months.
As someone who used to work in the banking field, I'm beginning to suspect that our government is being run by idiots, you know?
What could possibly give you that idea?
Seriously.
I'm getting that feeling, you know? Anyway, so Irvin,
in December, they said they had a $420 million deficit. So I don't really understand how this is working out on any level.
When I argue with Bitcoin enthusiasts, I say, come on, real money has got like the government and laws and financial instruments controlling it. And they point to stuff like this and they say, your money is no more fake than our money. And they've kind of got a point. Anyway, so Irvin, you've got Malwarebytes.
Yeah, Malwarebytes put out this interesting report. There's the short stuff, or the key takeaways that you can, if you don't want to read the whole thing. But things like Windows Business computers had a malware detection decrease. Macs had an increase.
Oh, business, okay.
Yeah, had an increase. Microsoft Office software crackers are still a thing. I guess people don't just want to move to like Google stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin miners, of course. Detections for threats like Emotet and TrickBot have fallen. I guess because everybody's at home. New malware that came out. Mac detections went up. Hidden ads on Androids went up by 149%.
Mm-hmm.
I thought,
all the ups and downs.
I'm surprised to hear about the Office crackers, because I thought that was all cloud-based right now.
Me too. Like Office 365. Like you don't need a cracker anymore.
I didn't think that they even put out a application.
Me either, but
it
apparently
was
they
still Office
must still
365
have
locally.
something,
Huh.
right? That was
I thought
interesting.
5 was the only option. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I guess people still run it locally.
I am, but I'm using old versions.
But anyway, it's interesting. Interesting finding, along with everything else that happened in 2020 that they put together.
Yeah, yeah. I often look at these things to get trends and what kind of attacks are up and coming.
Yep.
And I remember this one, a couple people chose with the 30,000 Macs infected. That's for Kaitlyn.
Yes, thanks. Sorry about that. My browser window is obscuring Zoom.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's this new malware. It has infected 30,000 Macintosh computers, not just any Macintosh computers. They are the new M1 chips that, we were talking about. Oh, it already has malware. Yeah, there's already new malware. It has infected 30,000 Macs. There's just one little problem with it. They forgot a payload, so it doesn't do anything. But it has infected 30,000 Macs. And so people are just looking at this and going, wait, why? What's going on?
It happened with one of the really big botnets on Windows.
Yeah.
To like 10 million machines, and then they never gave it a payload.
Yeah. There's just, I mean, as far as I know, the articles are basically saying there's no even way to give it a payload. I mean, it's just nothing, just infects and okay, we're done.
Yeah, well, criminals are just inefficient sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if this was a test that just kind of got out of hand. Like they were just testing if it worked and like, oops, oh, we accidentally infected everything. Or if this was just incompetence, like they were trying to infect, but then accidentally forgot the payload.
Well, I know with SolarWinds, they did deliberately first do something completely harmless just to test to see if it worked.
Yeah.
And then follow with the real payload.
They absolutely did. So in SolarWinds, what they did is they were able to get onto the production compiling system and then insert code into the compiling process. So first they, of course, tested to make sure they could do that because this was a new type of attack that, requiring custom code. And then soon afterwards, they put in the payload. And keep in mind too, I think we talked about this, like over 1,000 people worked on the SolarWinds hack. So of course, if they couldn't get away with the tests, then they could save a lot of resources by not proceeding further. So
yeah, and then we got Clubhouse, which is the new hotness.
Yes, it seems to have attracted all the Silicon Valley hype characters like Elon Musk, etc.
I think you can't even get it unless you're invited, right?
That's what was going on, but they have to monetize this platform, so they have to let everybody on, just like Facebook did many years ago.
Did they open it to everybody yet?
Well, I don't think they are quite yet. They're trying to still give the appearance of exclusivity, but they are allowing brands to advertise on it now. So this is the beginning of the end. But Clubhouse, as it turns out, has also been popular, or was briefly popular in China, because it was not censored by the Chinese government. So apparently, you had a number of Chinese citizens, residents, on Clubhouse discussing topics that are verboten in China, including Tiananmen Square and the treatment of Uyghurs.
Well, it's hard to censor spoken speech, right?
Right. And the big thing about Clubhouse is that it's audio. I should have explained this. It's audio chat, but supposedly there are no logs of these chats, and there is no recording of these chats. So it's kind of like Snapchat, except for audio.
Mm-hmm.
However, the Stanford Internet Observatory has discovered that the back end of Clubhouse is actually provided courtesy of a Chinese company called Agora. And Agora licenses out this platform to anybody who wants to pay for it. And it facilitates exactly this kind of audio chat communication. And That being the case, it means that these conversations are almost certainly being monitored by the Chinese government. At least that is the concern.
Yeah.
Certainly, it is within the Chinese government ability and legal purview to monitor these conversations. So now there is much doubt about just how secure these conversations are and whether the people who were having these discussions in China are now in jeopardy for having done so.
Yeah, and I think even more importantly is the metadata. Your identity, what chat room you're in, and your identity number is set up in plain text, and that's all they really need. They don't need to hear your conversation. They just want to know who was talking to who when, the pen register stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure some of those conversations were totally innocuous, and they were not being blocked. This app was not being blocked by the Chinese government earlier, but the government certainly is caught on now. So I think it means trouble for people who, at least Chinese citizens, who were on Clubhouse.
Yeah, this is why you need a VPN, although you're not allowed to use them in China.
Right.
Yeah. And then, so yet another white hatter story from Jamaica. So Jamaica's immigration website exposed some large amount of data. You had to take a COVID test and you had to upload like a video and your results to the website to get into Jamaica. And then they would just put it on unprotected public server that anybody could get to. So this researcher found it and told them, and they lied about it and falsified the time when they knew it, said it wasn't very many people when it was a lot of people, and then blamed the researcher, and are going to punish him even for accusing him of like a national security violation and stuff, the usual nonsense. So Jamaica is doing all the usual stuff. This is, in my experience from all this white hatting, this is what companies do when they've never actually had to deal with a security incident. The first time, they just try to shoot the messenger. And it's only at a later stage of maturity that they can actually have an intelligent response to it. So anyway. And the last one is Liz with Help Desk.
Yeah, ServiceNow, which is Zendesk competitor, they're pretty widespread in the industry as a help desk ticketing software. Essentially exposed a ton of credentials. Some of them were pretty low level accounts, but some were full admin, which was pretty bad because that could essentially you could essentially take over an entire organization with that, especially considering that some of their configurations had full remote command execution privileges and goodies like that available. They have released a patch, so if you are using this in your org, make sure that it's been patched since October of last year. But again, we really got to pay attention to our third-party providers. I've worked in organizations where none of this stuff, pretty much every organization I've worked in, none of this stuff gets vetted. Sounds good. The marketing pitch is good. So somebody makes a decision right then and there just to use it because it sounds like a panacea for whatever pain points they're facing. And that's how you get compromised. So try really, and to some extent there's a limited amount of due diligence you can do. I mean, unless you have somebody fully auditing and testing every single third-party service that you integrate, which is not very practical at all. This is going to become an issue, I think, in the future where, we've really got to get some kind of standard together where you can, be assured that these third-party integrations that you're including in your own systems have been vetted in some way, whether, sort of like a underwriter's laboratory seal or something, where, we've had a basic code review. There's been a basic security audit. There should be some kind of checklist so that you can see, well, okay, at least this company is doing the minimum.
Well, they do have that really. Like if you're in the military, everybody has to have FIPS certification, and you pretty much have to use the Microsoft version of everything. And they have done some review then.
Sure.
This I love this. This is just like script kiddie stuff. I sometimes write homework projects and I think they're too easy. You just look in the source code and the password is just sitting right there. This is like the first challenge in every CTF.
Right. It totally is. And it's, stuff like this, you'd think that it would be obvious now. You'd think that this kind of low-hanging fruit would be gone, but it's totally not.
Well, in the last year, Cisco 8 times just had a hard-coded backdoor password you could just find by looking in the shadow file. And this stuff goes on for years and nobody notices.
Yep.
So, it's like a law of nature. There's a lot of like little rabbits. There's just a lot of dumb mistakes being made.
Right. And it's even worse too, because on the other end, on the customer end, a bunch of people are doing things like using default creds again, or using their admin credentials for everything, which, come on, folks.
All right.
But it's so convenient, Liz.
Right. Why not just give everyone the admin password and login?
No, everyone's admin. We
Yeah.
trust everybody to be safe and do everything that's right.
Right. And it just saves so much time when, you don't have to have IT go in and do everything for them if you've given them the admin.
Exactly. And you don't have an IT budget because everyone's IT.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this one.
Hold on. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Infosec Decoded podcast. We're here every Monday and Friday. Tune in. We'll have new podcasts for you, new discussions, new news stories.
Good. All right. You're increasing our quality standards. I appreciate it.
And soon we'll have intro and outro music. But in the meantime,
Well, that's good. Somebody needs to make the music. It should logically be Irvin, right?
Oh no! Oh well, Irvin or Liz. We have 2 musicians on our panel.
We do.
Between the 2 of you, I think you can. Between the 2 of you, I think you should be able to figure something out.
That would be good.